Hey everyone, this is Nogat, and today I wanted to talk to you about Elfnote Albaz. Now, this is a version of Elfnote that hasn't been as popular in the OCG. They do play it, but they are more on the Fiendsmith version. But in the TCG, a lot of good players have been prepping for Blazing Dominion and have been liking this version a lot. And I've tried this in Blazing Dominion and Burst Protocol at the beginning, and I didn't like a lot of things, but now I actually found some cards that transformed the deck, and this is the version for Burst Protocol that is battle tested. We will talk about changes you make to this deck to make it ready for Blazing Dominion, and the combos I'll show at the end are for Blazing Dominion. So if you're here for Blazing Dominion, I'll put timestamps you can skip over, or you can watch the deck profile for the card choices, because most of that still holds true for that. But I wanted to give you a battle tested ready list instead of something that was mostly confined to playtesting with Blazing Dominion. So yeah, let's hop into the deck profile. So we of course play 3 Lucina. It's one card starter. We have 3 Tinia, which is very funny. When I started playing Elfnote, I was thinking, okay, Tinia is probably the worst starter, but now heading into Blazing Dominion, I think Tinia is the better starter because it plays better into draw, plays better into Harmonia, and these two can be big hand traps. Into Harmonia, because you activate this effect, it goes through into Harmonia, you get your spell, and then once the spell is there, they can pop your Regina with the Harmonia, so that's really nice. Yeah, big fan of Tinia now. And 1 Fortuna, this hasn't changed. You don't need more. This is not a starter until we get the new trap in the format after. Then we have 2 Elfnote Power Patron. This is standard for Burst Protocol, but in Blazing Dominion, most people are on 1. Although depending on the engine you play with it, you can decide to play 2. If your engine puts up bodies that can synchro with this, you can play multiple of it because it is an additional starter. You will see a card in this deck that combos very well with the Power Patron, and that is the Elfnote monsters. And then of course we have a spell, a trap. You have to run these. This is a starter too. It's not the best starter, but it is a starter. So then we have 2 Medias, standard for Burst Protocol, because otherwise this card won't work, Theorialize. This will obviously get swapped to the new Terminus, and the Medius is usually cut down to 1 because we'll have another target for the Terminus. We'll get to that in a second. So that's the Medius package. And then for our sub-engine, we have 2 Fallen of the White Dragon, 1 Fallen of Albaz for extra interaction. If you get stopped and you just end on the Ecclesia, you need this. Otherwise, the engine does nothing except for put bodies on the board. And then the 1 Ecclesia. I was on 2 and 3, I tested both of them, but I liked 1 the most. It's nice going second to special summon it into a board, but going first, you generally, if you draw this, you don't want to normal summon it because it loses to Ash, and you don't have Regina yet to help with your to help getting a tuner on board. So if you have like a Lucina that gets impermed, you summon the Ecclesia. Do you want to play into an Ash and end on nothing, or do you want to forego the whole Albaz thing? So not really a good draw, so we just on 1. It is a fine card to draw, but you're not happy to see it. So 3 Fallen the Virtuous. Of course, you can do 2 or like 3, but I like this card. Very good playing to boards, puts up a lot of pressure. And post Blazing Dominion, I cut it down to 2 because there's more ways to access your Albaz engine. And then that's already cutting into the non-engine. So let's just go into the non-engine. We have a lot of that. We have 3 Ash, 3 Fuwa, 2 Droll, 3 Veiler, 2 Ghost Spell, and then 2 Fenrir, which is both engine and non-engine, because Fenrir plus Elfnote Power Patron is full combo, but also Fenrir plus Veiler can get you to your Albaz engine at least, while getting you another Fenrir. Also, Fenrir adds you another Fenrir, which you can send for your Elfnote spell traps. He's in Earth, so that doesn't conflict with anything. And I had Imperms before, but Veiler being a level 1 tuner is just so important. I think it's even more important post Blazing Dominion, because then you can go Veiler plus Regina into a 7. You get your Regina back, and you can play still. And then the last card is a called by. This was a third bell, but I thought I'll rather have the called by here. So a lot of space for non-engine, and the Fallen Diverges also doubles as non-engine. So clean 40 cards, adjust the non-engine as you like for any format. Of course, you will play Harmonia next format if you afford it. And let's go to the extra. So of course, the star of the show is the Ecclesia. This is the card that puts everything together. Elfnote engine can go into level 8, and then this can get you into your Albaz engine, and that provides you with a lot of bodies, but also an Albaz in your opponent's turn. And synchro material. So, of course, I have the Strelitzia. This is your go-to. And we have the Crystal Wing Synchro Dragon as our 8. If you have Strelitzia plus a tuner, and you get 1 hand trap insulation, you go this. And then for the new star of this show, which basically made this deck viable for me, it is Axel Synchro Stardust Dragon, and of course the Stardust Dragon to go with it. Before, the standard line either had to go immediately Strelitzia into Crystal Wing Synchro, and then you don't go for Ecclesia because A, this plays into Nib, but also Ecclesia bringing out a 4 and a 4 won't make Crystal Wing. So what you generally would do is go Omega, and then basically this threatens the Nib. But if there's only an Omega on board and I have a Nib in hand, I'm just say, okay, take the 1 and 5, and you have a like 20% chance to hit the Nib. And if you don't, then have the Nib for the rest of your board, and there's just an Omega basically laying around. Yeah, so Nib was kind of a worry for this. And with Axel Synchro, you can actually play around Nib. I'll show you that in the combo. So I like this card a lot here. It also gives you a lot of flexibility during your opponent's turn, and it gives you a good Fuwa line. I'll show you that too. So that is for the Stardust package, of course. These are 2 extra deck slots, and once we get Harmonia, that'll eat up more extra deck slots. So it is a matter of you fitting these cards, but performance-wise, these were phenomenal. I made them every game, at least this one. And Stardust Dragon sometimes came out, sometimes the opponent just scooped. So Don Drexler as our level 7 that we just leave on the board. Spell Trap Negate, very important against Draco Tail, but also against Cool Tune, because if you remove their bodies, they need their spells to extend or Rotary in hand, and this helps against that. We have Hyperlibrarian as our level 5. I never made this last tournament I played, but I wanted to have a level 5. It is weird, because usually people would never imperm a Elfnote Power Patron if you went for Medius, because there's a Medius to imperm. But if you don't have the Librarian and somehow they do imperm it, then you're just stuck. So it's weird. There's also a combo in this version where you draw 6 cards if you go Hyper Librarian line, if you don't respect Nib, but I didn't make that. That would be a combo against Breaker decks. So yeah, this is definitely cuttable, but I had it in the list still. We have the Fabled Levilazable as our generic level 10. Sometimes you have to make a level 10. If you can make this going second, it's very good. If you can make it going first, it's very good. And very good into Cool Tune as well, because this negates the monster. So, for example, Q, you negate the effect and you take the body so they can't synchro. So it's basically like Widow Anchor. And but this also doesn't target. So if you go Lazable and they chain Cool Tune Synchro, they do get the effect of their Q, but you still take whatever they synchroed into and negate it. So they can't really dodge that effect. As for level 10s, I also have Chaos Angel. Chaos Angel in this version is very good because the 2 projected best decks for most people are still Dracotail and Cool Tune, and this card is amazing against both of them. And you have very easy access to it because this is a light, this is a dark. So you just need level 6 with that, and you have your Fortuna. So, for example, a lot of times in the standard combo, you can actually end on these 2 on the board in your opponent's turn, and then quick synchro with the Axel Synchro with these 2 into Light and Dark Chaos Angel, and then banish something your opponent controls, plus have the Chaos Angel that your opponent has to out, which is also unaffected by all card effects until the end of turn due to Axel Synchro. For level 12, we have the Centurion Legacia. This was nice to have for the Nib lines, because Nib token plus Power Patron makes Legacia, pops the Nib, draws your cards, frees your zone. But also in the opponent's turn with the Axel Synchro, like Stardust or Ecclesia plus a 4, makes Legacia, pops a card, draws your card. Is very nice to have. For the last slot, I have SP Little Knight, another cuttable card, but I really like having SP just for turn 3 applications or playing into boards where you aren't locked yet. It clears your board, it removes problem cards, it's just nice to have, but feel free to play around with that slot. For the last cards, we have fusions for the Albaz package. We have 4 right here. You can cut it down, you can swap a card, but you definitely play the Albion, of course, because Fallen the Virtuous wants to send this to set another copy. You want the Dragon that Devours the Dogma, because this is a premium Albaz target, especially against Q. Q is a light, summons another monster, so light effect monster plus Albaz takes 2 bodies that way. And then we have Murderjade, of course, any extra deck monster plus Albaz. And then you can leave it at this. You can play a Rindbrom, but I opted to go sprint the Iron Dash Dragon because this basically is like Titaniclad, where you can send it playing into a board with Fallen of the Virtuous and in the end phase summon Fallen of Albaz. But also the fusion materials for these cards are Albaz and 1 effect monster special summoned this turn. So when you have your Synchro Ecclesia on your opponent's turn and they start playing and have like a cool tune body on board, which is like Rico, for example, which is a fire, and you want to get rid of that for any reason, you can just summon Albaz and fuse with the Rico to make sprint. It also has another effect where it can pop cards in the column, which maybe comes up. It's not a terrible card, but that is basically it. So that is the deck profile for Burst Protocol. Let's show you some things I would change going into Blazing Dominion. So let's take a look into the future into Blazing Dominion format and what would change with this list. So the biggest elephant in the room is Federalis Harmonia. This is a very powerful card and one of the big reasons to play this version. We'll see it in the extra deck choices in this list. This is a very powerful lantern, but even more powerful in Albaz Elfnote. So what we want to cut here is probably the Fenris. Fenris is phenomenal and I want to play it in the next version, but Federalis Harmonia puts itself on the board and then you can summon Fenrir. So there's a little bit of anti-synergy here, so you rather cut that from your deck. For the last cut, we can cut the Called By, which was just like a help card, and you don't need it anymore with Regina and more ways to push through interactions. So you definitely do this. And what you also want to play is, you want to play a new Medius package, which is the Terminus and the new Vidrium, which are all 1-card starters. You can scale Vidrium, just use the effect to boost all your power patrons in the future, which won't come up, but this then adds you the Unleashed Power Patron, and then you can add the Medius with this. You won't get the card draw off of it, but it's still a 1-card starter, so you can even opt to play 2 of these. These will replace the Theorealizers. If you want, you can have more consistency by playing 1 single Theorealize. It's not bad, but I rather not play it because it needs Medius in the deck. This is still like live, it can add this card, right? But if you draw Medius, Theorealize doesn't do anything unless you play a second Medius. But we cut one of the Medius because we have another Dark Fairy now. So we have 2 search target for this, which is good enough. You can actually even activate this just to send a card if that comes up for whatever reason. You don't need the search target in the deck, but this is what I would change here. So Theorealize and Medius out for the better Medius Searcher. Then we of course want to play Regina. Best case, you want to play 3. I'm currently experimenting with 2, so I'm going to show you the changes for 2, but try to cut something that is probably not non-engine because you want a high non-engine count. But the new cards that raise the ceiling of the deck, Regina and Junordo. Junordo lets you draw cards. And what I take out from it was the 3rd Fallen of the Virtuous and the 2nd Elfnote Power Patron, which loses a lot of value without the Fenrir. You can't tune with the Harmonia because this is a tuner 2, unless you play, I think Visas can do it. The Visas one can use 2 tuners. And that is the changes I would make for the main deck. At least feel free to experiment with ratios, especially people will probably scream at me for only 1 Regina. I'm just testing it out, but you can of course make space for 3. Then we need to make some changes to the extra deck, of course, to accommodate for Harmonia. You want to at least play Malong and at least play Ludowa Lilith. You can make room for Packbit, but I felt Packbit is more of a luxury. It's fine if you have these 2. Malong can bounce a card Send and Luluwa Lilith in the end phase will summon Ecclesia, which is a big reason to play this deck. Your Harmonia puts a big body on the board, pops a card, and then sends the Luluwa Lilith, which in the end phase gets you Ecclesia, which on your turn can tribute itself, get Albaz, get itself back, make Synchro Ecclesia, or just get OG Albaz. Puts up a lot of pressure, and this deck needs help going second. So, big reason to play this list is this interaction. And for that, you need some cuts, and one card I was considering is Legacia. These are both level 12s, but Luluwa Lilith needs a level 4 tuner, so you cannot make Luluwa Lilith with a Knit token and your Elfnote Power Patron. So that line is out the window. So if you want something else to cut, you can keep the Legacia. But for the Synchro on your opponent's turn, you can just use your Stardust or Ecclesia with the level 4 tuner and make Luluwa Lilith on your opponent's turn. Another card I would try and cut was the Hyper-Librarian. Unless you're really afraid of your opponent knowing that you don't run Hyper-Librarian, then you can of course find something else. And one card you could also cut is SP. So one of these, two of these three, you can definitely cut. Another cut that is possible would be the Sprint, which is a luxury, but I really like it for the reasons I mentioned above. Everything else in the list is pretty good. You can of course consider not playing these and playing the Omega package, but I really like this line. I think it's really, really strong. And yeah, the other cards are not really cuttable. You can maybe cut down to 110. But again, I liked having this if I was in a spot where I had the Elfnote Power Patron and an Elfnote to make it, or just make it on the opponent's turn if I don't have Light and Dark. And then Chaos Angel is just a house into prominent matchups. So these are the changes that I would make. And let's hop into some combos. So let's talk about the one card Terminus line. We'll talk about it and play into Nib and see how we manage with that. You know, if you watched the last video, that this card alone plays into a lot of hand traps if you play the Medius line. But if you only have this is the line you would make, and it definitely beats Nib. And it can beat Droll, kind of. I'll get to that in a second. So you activate the Terminus, send the Elfnote Power Patron, grab Medius. If they Droll here, what you need is a second Elfnote Power Patron. So depending on how popular Droll is, you can opt to play a second one. Then you can summon the Medius, summon the second one, still go into your Albaz line. And that'll get you the Ecclesia, and then you go into Exile Stardust, brings back the Elfnote Power Patron. You make a Synchro on your opponent's turn, and then you get an Elfnote Search, and that's that. But here, let's just assume we don't get Drolled. We grab the Vidrium, scale it, use the effect to revive. We get back Elfnote Power Patron in the middle monster zone, and the Vidrium grabs you Junodo. You can use that whenever you want, depending on your hand. Just keep that in mind. There's a segment of the combo where you can do it for the maximum value that I'll do here, but just keep in mind that if your hand is bad into other disruptions, you just try to use it as fast as you can so you draw more extenders. But here you're gonna use the Elfnote Power Patron effect to increase its level, and if they Veiler this and you don't have Librarian in the deck or another level 5, tough luck. Usually they should Veiler or Imperm the Medius though. So, or you just play the level 5. That's up to you. You perform a Synchro Summon for an 8, and that is Ecclesia, triggering the Elfnote Power Patron to grab Tinia. You can then use the Ecclesia, tag itself out. So this is already saved from Nib. This comes back at any point in the end phase, and you'll get summon number 4, summon number 5. So they can Nib here, and this is a decent Nib, because after that they won't get that much value. There's one other spot where they get the same value, but that's basically it. They Nib, you get a token that blocks your middle monster zone. So what you can do here is use a little rule knowledge and use Medius the Pure to summon itself back by shuffling a monster. Shuffling a monster here is a monster effect. So what Medius does is tries to resolve as much as he can. So what we do, we try to shuffle the token. It is a token, it can't get shuffled, it gets destroyed. Medius won't summon, but your middle monster zone is free for your Tinia. So that is how you would do it here, which is a big advantage over Theorealize, where you already used that Medius effect. So let's rewind. There was no Nib, and we just Synchro 8 into our Axel Synchro Stardust Dragon. So what happens here is Chaining 1, this activates. If they Nib here before you get the tuner on board, this goes away, you get your token, you get the tuner back, And what you can do is you can just make a Legacia, or if you don't play that, you just do the Medius line again. So they obviously don't do that. If they wait for the summon, they tribute both. You can either tag out with this to make a Croc if you play that, the level 9 synchro. If you don't play that, you just make the Medius line again. So let's say they wait. You summon the Tinya, and here's where it gets interesting. If they nib here, you can go Axial Synchro Stardust effect to tag out into Stardust Dragon, and then make Strelitzia here. Because the Axial Synchro Stardust says you summon Stardust Dragon, then you perform a Synchro Summon. Doesn't have to be with the Stardust. Both of the monsters summoned by this effect are unaffected by card effects. So Nib can attribute these two. That means it stays in hand because it can't resolve. You won't get a token, and the Strelitzia will just get you back your Tinya, and you just combo as usual. So that's not a good Nib. And we just go back to our previous board where we use the Tinya to set up a welcome home, and then you can synchro here for your Strelitzia. And what's important here, you don't have a tuner anymore, so you can't tag out. So what you want to do is use your turn player priority for the Strelitzia to summon a monster, because if they nib in response to that, you lose your monsters, you get a token, but you still get this. So you can still make Legacia, pop the nib, draw a card. And if they let the summon through, you can here tag out into a Stardust and then make Crystal Wing with these. You have the same scenario. So if they don't nib, you just hard make the Crystal Wing. But before that, what you want to do is the best value spot for your Ginordo is here, actually, because you can't do it on the summon of Strelitzia, because that means you're giving up your player priority. But on the summon of Elfnote Power Patron, you can use this, draw 2 cards, discard 1, and then Ginordo triggers to grab back your Tinya. This is going to be important later. So here, what you're going to do is you're going to go and make your negate. I'm just going to put these pendulum cards to the side because they block my extra deck. So now you have a negate for the nib. And now what you want to do, you haven't used your welcome home, and that is a good use for your Tinya. Of course, keep in mind that if you have like a spare Fuwa in hand, you can just keep the Ginordo for later and just ditch the Fuwa. But here you can ditch the Tinya if you have like all hand traps in hand. Summon the Lucina just to get it in rotation, because this is going to get you your Regina. And Regina is going to send this, summon itself, effect to summon Fortuna. Fortuna places the trap. The trap sends the Fortuna to bring back the Elfnote Power Patron. And then you can go and perform a Synchro Summon here into a level 7 of your choice, in this case Dawn Dragster. And that'll trigger the Regina in the grave. Come back to your hand, and that is going to be your turn. So we end up with card draw through Ginordo. We have Regina in hand for layering. We have Dawn Dragster for spell negate. We have Crystal Wing for monster negate. We have the trap for all purposes, and we will get our Ecclesia back. So we have a lot of options here. So right now we don't have a tuner on board, but at any point we can just tag out the Ecclesia. And what's really cool here is you can go these two. This card threatens an Albaz, of course, and the Albaz itself is either a send target for Rhapsodia, or depending on the matchup, what you can do is you can send any card and then summon the Fortuna and use the Axial Synchro Stardust, tag out, make Stardust, and then use Fortuna and Albaz for a Light and Dark Chaos Angel, which is unaffected until the end of the turn. And while it's in the main monster zone, it cannot be destroyed by card effects. So even if they have Fallen the Virtues, they can't do anything about it on your turn, which can be devastating in some matchups. But generally, the Axel just allows you to do a lot of stuff in the opponent's turn. You can also make if you have like the Ecclesia on the board or something, you can make the Legacia with a level 8 like Stardust Dragon or used Synchro, and you can make a level 10. If you have, for example, an Elfnote monster plus Elfnote Power Patron in the middle monster zone, or just the Ecclesia or whatever, you have a lot of options here, and that is just so good. as layering, it's very hard to play through this full board. This, I don't think most decks can play through it. We tested a lot of breakers, and breakers don't do anything. You have to hand trap it, so they don't get to this spot. So that is the full 1-card combo with Terminus. Let's talk more about Axel in regards to Fuwa loss. So same line, but now we are into Fuwa loss. So we have the Terminus, and your opponent hasn't revealed the Fuwa loss yet, of course, so we're just going to play the line as normal. So we send the Paw Patron, grab the Medius, they don't draw here, perfect. Normal summon Medius, effect. Now Medius can summon from deck, so a lot of people would Fuwa here, and then the Medius will of course grab the Vidrium instead. So no draw for Fuwa, scale the Vidrium, use the effect, pop itself, bring back the Paw Patron, which triggers the Vidrium to get you your Ginordo. You can scale the Ginordo, and then you can go Paw Patron effect, increase the level, so now it's level 4, and then you can perform your Synchro Summon into Axel Synchro Stardust. This will give your opponent a draw. So this is the first draw for Fuwa. Axel Synchro Stardust will trigger, and Elfnote Paw Patron will trigger as well. Depending on what you want to play around, you can chain block it like 1, 2 to play around Ash, or you can play around Harmonia by going 1 and 2. That's up to you. But here, we're going to grab the Elfnote Fortuna, and we're going to grab the Elfnote Paw Patron. This is important because you don't want to extend much here. Instead, you're going to summon the Fortuna, which triggers the Ginordo, because this is your last moment to do so, unless you want to do it on the opponent's turn. You draw 2 cards, perfect, Fuwa and Ash. Let's keep the Ash. Would have loved to have that earlier, but that's fine. And you can use the Fortuna effect, get your trap, and you can actually pass on this. Of course, the Ginordo will add back the Vidrium for follow-up. And you can decide, do you want to give your opponent a second draw just to make a 7 here and free up some options, or do you want to just leave it as is? But what's cool here is your opponent got 1 draw, and you have a Synchro on board, which means the Rhapsody of Madness can negate already. You have something free to send. Of course, you would need to have an Elfnote in the grave to revive. So that is one point where you know your opponent has Fallen the Virtues in your the deck, which would just in draw phase pop the Axel Synchro, and then you are very sad, because this is the main phase effect. In that case, you would obviously go into the Dawn Dragster instead, so that you have an Elfnote in the grave already. But feel free to give them a draw depending on how your reads in the matchups are. So, but what you can do here in the opponent's turn is at any point, you can just use the Axel Synchro Stardust, and that'll summon out your Stardust Dragon, and then perform a Synchro Summon with these 2. So here you can go into a 7 of your liking, you can go into Dragster, you can go into Strelitzia, that is up to you. I just go for the Dragster, and that actually triggers the Elfnote Paw Patron in your hand, so you can get a search on your opponent's turn to get the Regina. So you can actually put the card here if you want, or here, depending on how you want to sequence it. For example, if you want to bounce a spell trap, you can use the Rhapsodia to bring back Fortuna, then swap, and so on. But you got the Regina now. You have this. You have the pop negate, which can come up, and you have the negate for everything with the Rhapsodia. And depending on if you have more Elfnote cards, you can just go Regina, or if you have no Elfnote cards in hand, you can go Rhapsody of Madness. Worst case, ditch the Vidrium from your hand to bring back your Fortuna, so that you have a negate, and then you can use Regina to send it, and special from your deck, either Lucina or Tinia, whatever you want, and then you can do the swap here. So through giving 1 draw, we have the draw 2 for hand traps. We have 1 interaction with the Dragster, we have 1 interaction with the Stardust Dragon, we have the Lucina as interaction, we have the Rhapsodia of Madness. So 4 interactions with just 1 card, giving 1 draw into Fuwa. There's of course a lot of things you can do if you draw stuff with Ginordo as well. So it changes depending on what you draw, but very, very good line into Fuwa loss, which was considered a big weakness for this deck, and probably still is, but this at least gives you something good to do into. That is it for the video. I hope you liked it. A bit of a longer video, but that's just, I have a lot to say about this deck. the deck has a lot of room for innovation. I'm currently still considering Doomsday or Elfnote, but Elfnote right now has just more room for innovation, and that's why I'm on that deck right now. But if you want to see more Medius lore decks, then feel free to leave a like. We're almost at 3,000 subscribers, I think, and once we get to 3,000, I want to do a giveaway for a Drastea, because I have one spare, so if you want to play Doomsday, that's for you. But yeah, that's it for the video. Thanks everyone for watching. Leave a like, subscribe, and I'll see you next time.